Hello and welcome out to this episode of Outbreak Gamers. I'm your host, David Anthony WEBDAVE, and I am very pleased to have with us today Luke Steele. Luke, how you doing, sir?
I'm very well, thank you. Yeah, thank you for having me. It's a great pleasure. How are you?
I'm doing really good. A little intro issues, but we'll
Yeah, we
I'll
got
work those
through
out in
them.
post. It's all good.
Yeah.
Oh man. To start things off, I'm in Kentucky, which is Central Standard Time, and you are in the UK.
hmm
So for me, it's afternoon. For you, it's late evening, and I appreciate you staying up late and doing this.
No, that's okay. I'm always up at this time. Yeah, it's 9:15 here basically. But yeah, I try and eke out my Sundays as much as possible, knowing that tomorrow I'm going to be working. So
Right.
I tend to like to extend my Sundays a bit to get the most out of the weekend.
Very good. Very good. Well, we won't tie up too long, but we
That's
definitely wanted to find out more about you. I've seen you on a lot of podcasts, and your insight, and of course your job and your professionalism really help in explaining the situations on, like, say, for example, the ABK deal and a lot of other things that are out going on in the gaming world today that aren't the
Mhm.
norm, to be honest.
Yeah, no, not at
Um,
all. Yeah.
so by these by those things, you've made it easy to I guess to easy to understand with the way you explain things, and I appreciate that from somebody who's not a lawyer, doesn't lawyers speak, and just like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. Yeah, there's a lot of jargon and kind of weird stuff that goes on, particularly recently, as you say. I think it's come to the forefront in the last year or so, obviously with ABK. So it's been great actually to be able to kind of confluence the two things. So being
Mhm.
a gamer and also being in that profession, having experience of it, it's been really cool. It's one of the rare times you get to do that, right? Where you kind of what you do for a living and your hobby kind of cross over. So it's been really cool.
Nice, very cool. Well, I guess let's get things started because you haven't always been a lawyer.
Nope,
so
nope.
so what was your first job and your education as you got started?
Yeah, so I'm trying to remember what my first job was actually. It's quite difficult to remember because I kind of did a lot of odd jobs for my dad when I
Hmm.
was a lot younger. So he had a bakery, so I would do some bakery stuff, and I would help him with that. And then he changed careers like a few years later when I was older, and he became a sort of handyman ish. So I would go and do stuff like that, like help him paint and repair things. I guess first proper job I got when I was at university, and I was sort of doing I don't know, like call center, like telecalls sort of
Mm-hmm.
stuff, on behalf of the university to try and get people to donate to their alumni program. So that was kind of my first job, and then I did a lot of call center jobs after that, um, which were kind of stuff to help me as I was at university, right? Like just
Mm-hmm.
to have some money. So I worked for like a taxi company, cab company for the Americans,
Right, right.
and I worked a couple of others. I worked for a really big kind of tech call center here in the UK. So I would do technical support for customers, which was fun because I've always been quite techy and into technology, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
So that was cool. Um, and yeah, I mean, like I kind of did just a lot of odd jobs, anything I can get my hands on, really, just to give me extra money while I was a student. As is
Right.
the way when you're a student. So yeah, quite a few different things, but yeah, those were kind of the first batch of jobs I did.
And then I guess I would think that something like that, because you're on the phone
Yeah.
talking with probably people that were sometimes frustrated,
Oh
and
yeah,
you
yeah, yeah,
you have to kind of stay stay in your lane and kind of keep them from veering off
yeah.
to either get to where they needed help or where you needed to pass them on to, I assume. So that
Mm.
maybe I would think would kind of help you later as being a lawyer, to being able to deal with people and those kind of situations too, because in front of a judge is no fun place to be.
No, yeah, no. I mean, I think they did. I think all of that kind of customer service stuff, that direct conversational stuff. Yeah, I think that helped a lot actually. Just
Hmm.
in terms of getting, as you say, like being in front of people who might be frustrated or need things explaining to them, particularly in on tech calls, right? Because a lot of
Right,
people who call these up, most people probably aren't very technologically minded.
right,
They're kind of experiencing frustration sometimes because they just don't understand stuff. Not in a bad
right.
way. It's just that it might be some
You
much
can't know
older
everything.
person, yeah, who hasn't had a PC or a laptop or whatever, which was one that I often got. So yeah, so being able to kind of break stuff down for people and explain things to people and try and help them with that kind of stuff was, I think, good prep for what I do now to some extent. So yeah, it was a good job. It was difficult, but it was good.
Yeah, well, it sounds like it was, kind of fun in a way that it was, it may not have been the best job, but at least it
Yeah.
was, it wasn't something that was like, slave labor, hard,
No, 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 no,
cooking in the
no,
kitchen 24/7,
no.
which I've
Exactly.
had those kind of jobs too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, but I guess you talked about your education.
Hmm.
Obviously, to become a lawyer, it takes a lot of education. So,
Yeah.
what was that journey like for you? And I guess was there a certain type of lawyer you wanted to become, or in the
Mm.
profession? Because I know there's several different avenues to being a lawyer.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I guess, yeah, I mean, you're right that, it takes a long time to get there, particularly in the UK. Mine took a little longer than most because I did something in between another thing, which I'll explain in a minute, that you don't have
Okay.
to do, but I really wanted to do it. So yeah, I did my undergraduate, which was a law degree. That took 3 years. So I did that. And then after I finished that, I was lucky enough to get a scholarship at the same university to do a master's in corporate and commercial law, which was an area I was interested in. So I did that. And then in the UK, the way it works is that it's a little bit different in the US in that you kind of have each jurisdiction, each kind of state has a bar, right? And you have to
Mm-hmm.
pass the bar. In the UK, there's none of that because it's too small. So you just,
Mm.
when you're a lawyer in the UK, you can practice law anywhere in the UK. But what you do have to do is to become a lawyer, you have to do something called a training contract, which is a 2 years on the job at a law firm experience. And before you do that, you actually have to do something called, it's changed a bit now, but when I was doing all this stuff, it's called the legal practice course,
Mm-hmm.
or the LPC for short. And so the LPC was like a year long course, kind of heavy practical application of law in all sorts of different areas. You had to cover corporate conveyancing, property law,
Mm-hmm.
wills and probate, that kind of stuff. So when I finished my masters, I was lucky enough to manage to get a training contract. That those are really hard to get. Obviously, there's a lot of competition for them. And then before I did that, I was sponsored by that same firm to go and do the legal practice course, which meant that I could then go and do my training contract. So all in all, I guess from undergraduate to masters to LPC, that took about 5 years.
Wow.
And then I went from that. I moved to London to be a trainee lawyer for 2 years at a US law firm. In fact, it was the London office of a
Mm-hmm.
pretty big US law firm. And yeah, then after those 2 years, I was finally qualified. Finally a lawyer. That's the point you're admitted onto the role in the UK. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, about 7 year journey in total.
Wow, that's long,
So
but
yeah, it's a lot. It's a long time. It's a lot of learning. Trying to figure things out. 5 years of theoretical learning and then 2 years of actual. You're actually doing the job at that point,
right.
right? So yeah, long time.
Wow. I mean, but to me, it seems like, to get to where you are now. I mean, you had to go. You had to take that journey. You had to
Yeah,
do it. So,
yeah,
and I assume, um, a lot of. Not saying it's the only reason, but I mean, it's definitely being a lawyer probably is more lucrative, than being a
yeah,
fry cook. so,
yeah,
so in the
yeah.
long run, it's probably worth it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think so. Yeah, I mean, it's there's kind of a mix of reasons why you do it, right? I mean, for
Hmm.
me, like before I started my undergrad degree, that was kind of the thing I wanted to do. I didn't know what law I was going to practice or anything like that, but I just had it in my mind that I could probably do that job, and my family, nobody in my family had a job like that, as in some profession, right?
Hmm.
That's not a knock to my family or anything like that, but like I was the first person in my family in my kind of broad family to go to university, for example. So
Wow.
that was a big thing in of
Like,
itself.
yeah.
But yeah, like I just, I knew that obviously it's a profession that, well, it depends on where you go, right? Because you can be a lawyer and not be paid very much. You can be a barrister and not be paid very much. Or equally, you can be paid quite a lot and you're very well compensated. I mean, you work extremely hard and the hours are long and it's stressful. But the way up of that is obviously it's a respected profession, and the rewards can be really good. So
Right.
that factored in to some extent. But really, what I wanted to do was just have a I just really like the law, right? Like I
Yeah.
just like the idea of being a lawyer. So that's kind of the path I went on, really. So
Yeah.
yeah,
That's awesome. That's awesome. And it just out of curiosity, this has nothing to do with it, but a
yep.
barrister, is that like a
Ah.
judge in the U.S. or no?
No, no, a barrister. It's a bit hard to explain, but you have solicitors in the UK, which are lawyers, we'd
Right.
call them.
Okay.
So that's what I am, a solicitor. A barrister is someone who is a qualified lawyer, but they have a particular specialism, which is that they run cases, right? So
Okay.
things like litigation or criminal cases,
Mm,
or
okay.
mainly criminal. So they will be in front of judges. Often that's kind of part and parcel of what they do, and they get involved in predominantly contentious things. So it's just a specialist title, really, for
Right.
that
Right.
kind of area.
Cool.
But yeah,
All right. Sorry for my confusion.
no,
I
no,
just
this,
went out part. I was like, where? Yeah. To be honest, where the first place I ever heard of barrister was Monty Python years ago.
yeah,
Some
yeah,
of their
yeah,
skits had to do with the law.
yeah,
Also, it's
yeah,
pretty funny and had nothing to do with law. But you know what I'm saying. So it just popped in
yeah,
my head. I
yeah.
was like, huh? Oh, is that okay? Cool. Or Fish
Yeah,
Called Wanda.
we have a lot of weird terms in the UK for like legal stuff. Like no, like for example, nobody here really uses the term lawyer.
Wow.
It's always solicitor. That's just it's the same thing. It's exactly the
Right.
same. Like the person underneath the job. It's the same. It's
Hmm.
just for some reason in the UK we're called solicitors. No idea
Yeah.
why.
What?
To this day, no idea why.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I
But
mean, regional, type thing. It
yeah,
makes sense. So,
yeah, yeah.
but cool. So let's kind of turn this a little bit because we're gonna, or I guess we're gonna collide the two eventually.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah.
But at some point, let's go ahead and start on the I guess how you got into gaming. What was your first experience in gaming?
Oh, that's I can't even. Yeah, I can't. It's really difficult to remember what my first experience would be, but it would be um, probably around the SNES
Oh, okay.
era, right?
Hmm.
So the SNES. I didn't have one, but I remember playing it at a friend's a lot when I was younger. I mean, obviously that came out, when I was fairly young.
Hmm.
Um, and then, like, from there, I remember playing a lot of the N64, Dreamcast as well. Again, I didn't have these, but I always played them at friends.
Right.
And I guess the first, like, I'm trying to think of the first console that I actually owned, but it was, in fact, it was probably an N64 way back when, coming to think of it. But then I remember the first really vivid memory I have of playing a lot of games was actually getting the first PlayStation
Yeah.
for the first time, which I think is similar for a lot of people, or at least a very, significant memory of
Hmm.
gaming. And kind of from that point on, I was really, really hooked on gaming. So I've been gaming now for, I don't know, 25 years or something like that, like a long, long time. And
Yeah.
it's kind of, as I've got older, I've kind of played more and more, like
Hmm.
I've gotten more into it, become more of an enthusiast about it. So yeah, I guess that's my first real memory is that kind of mishmash of console stuff, and then specifically having a PlayStation.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's you got to start somewhere, whether it's
Yeah,
in your job or in your gaming. A
yeah,
lot of
yeah,
people started with arcades. Some people started with their dad's PC because it was
yeah,
at the house,
yeah,
kind of
yeah,
thing, running
yeah.
DOS and playing whatever. So
Yeah,
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 those things travel. And there's some people that that really didn't start getting into gaming until they were an adult.
yeah. Exactly. The journey's different for everybody, right? Like,
Hmm.
and especially like the your kind of involvement in a brand is different for everybody in
Right.
gaming as well. So like, for me, I played a lot of PlayStation. I got a PS2, but that wasn't the PS2 wasn't the console I played a lot of. The console I played a lot of at that time was the original Xbox,
Hmm.
which to this day is still probably my favorite console of all time because it just holds like a lot of memories.
Oh yeah.
And that was something my dad just got as a surprise, which was amazing,
Nice.
And I've said this before in other places, but like the one of my best gaming memories is booting up Halo Combat Evolved for the first time and just like being amazed by it. I thought it was incredible. And then yeah, then I guess like 2004 5, I kind of got into PC gaming because my dad built a PC for me. In fact, we kind of built it together, so that was really
Cool.
cool. I remember playing Crisis when it came out, or trying to play Crisis. I didn't get very far. I ran it, but that was about it.
Yeah.
So yeah, like it's different for everybody. Like everybody starts in a different place in terms of gaming, and then their kind of affiliation with brands and all that, or like a particular lineage of consoles or PC is quite different.
Yeah, for sure. I know, like, starting off, playing when I was, I'm old, and so like the Atari
Yeah.
hat that I wear was literally me and my dad went and got the. We stood in line. I can't think it was Woolworths or something like that,
No, right. Yeah,
which
yeah,
is
yeah,
way out of business by now.
yeah.
Sears, when it was Sears and Roebuck, maybe something like that, to get the Atari when it first came out, and
Mm,
a couple of games because they were kind of expensive.
yeah.
Yeah, so and that's how my journey really got started. And then but my best memories are with playing with my son, kind of like you and your dad,
Yeah.
when Halo
Yeah.
came out, and we hours and hours co-op on the
Yeah.
couch,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And I'll admit my son is a far superior gamer than me. I mean, he's really damn good, and I'm
Yeah.
like, I enjoy playing. But I never claim to be a great player because I'm not. But I enjoy it, and that's really what matters. As long as you have fun at it.
Oh yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
so, but yeah, it's a great um joiner of people. I think
Definitely.
playing
Yeah.
games.
Yeah.
I mean, there's times when you're playing against somebody and you want to throw your controller, just because
Yeah.
they beat you, but it's like that's more against you than it is them.
Yeah.
Thinking
For
you
sure.
wish you were better than how dare them beat me, kind of thing. So,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, playing into gaming today. I mean, fast forward to now. Like my wife, she loves playing video games. Her most fun she ever had was Donkey Kong, Donkey Kong 2, Donkey Kong 3, Donkey
Nice.
Kong Country series. Side scrollers, loved them.
Mm.
Soon as we got the N64 and got Donkey Kong 64 for it, she played about 2 minutes and she's like, I can't do it because the 3D moving the camera around made her sick. It
Too
just made her
much. Yeah.
nauseous. Yeah,
Yeah.
just so she occasionally she'd watch me play. And sometimes she'd be like, I go in the other room because the way the 3D stuff, even just her watching somebody else play started making because for me, I was zipping around trying to get done. And for her, it's like, that's way too fast. Slow down.
Yeah.
I can't keep up. But yeah, but she plays games all the time now on her phone. But
Mm.
I love it. She says, "Oh, this game was free." I said, "Really? It's a free game. You download it and play it, and you spent $80 this month on it by buying extra things for it." She goes, "Did I spend that much?" Yeah, yeah, you did. Here's the
Yeah.
bill.
It was
So
free though.
it was
Initially.
free.
Yeah. Yeah.
I do. That's not gaming you do. No, you don't. But and that's
That's
cool
awesome.
because to me, gaming is for everybody, and that there's so
Yeah.
many different levels of gaming. I think it's wonderful. So
Mm.
let's kind of get I guess how did you I guess was it like a somebody reached out to you? Did you have you done any like do you have your own YouTube channel? I mean, I know you have a or how did you get the I guess your first invite to talk about gaming and loring together?
Oh, yeah. I guess I'd like going way back, like just to
Okay.
give some context.
Mhm.
When I was younger, what I did do, so I've always been interested in like put it like not in the lawyer element necessarily putting that out there, but
Right.
kind of giving my views or being involved in gaming in some respect. So when I was younger, when I was kind of 15, 16, 17, that age, maybe a little bit younger than that,
Mhm.
I would do a lot of writing for various websites. So reviews and previews and that sort of stuff, or very occasionally opinion pieces. All sorts of different ones, mainly at the time, kind of Xbox focused ones.
Mhm.
But I occasionally went out and did some others. So you know, because I always really enjoyed just writing. Like I'm a, you know, not to toot my horn, but I'm a good writer. I always have been. You have to be somewhat of a, you know, be able to write pretty well to actually do
Right.
law, obviously. So, so I always really enjoyed that. And as I got older, I just didn't have the time, right, to do that stuff. Like I was too busy doing, you know, a university or studying or whatever. So
Mhm.
just that kind of fell away, which is a shame because it was something I always really loved. But then, you know, fast forward sort of 10 years later, I just realized that, you know, a lot of, if you went on YouTube, that a lot of people were doing these podcasts and, you know, they were just kind of people like you and me, just like really hardcore gamers
Mhm.
who before hadn't been able to actually put their voice out there on something, but
Right.
now they could just do it really easily. And I thought that was really cool. And I found a lot of different people. One of the you know people I found was Mr. Boomstick, obviously, who we
Yeah.
both know. And I just really enjoyed his stuff. I really enjoyed how enthusiastic he was about everything, pretty
Mhm.
much, right?
Yeah.
Particularly when gaming, sometimes people can get very cynical about it and kind of you know, a little bit kind of negative about everything that goes on, like
Right.
how whether that's industry based or games or franchises or whatever. And so one day I was like, oh, it's really cool, and I think I could actually do this. Like, I think I could give some different views, not necessarily from a legal perspective, but just because
Right.
I love experience gaming. You know, I've got stuff to say. You know, so I
Yeah.
reached out, and he was very kind enough to put me on, and then kind of went from there. So I did more things with him. I got invited to other podcasts, and then just kind of snowballed. And obviously, you know, through none of this really was the legal stuff highlighted because we didn't have much legal stuff going on that we could talk about, like in gaming, apart from obviously the last year and a bit
Right.
with Activision Blizzard. So yeah, so no, I don't have a YouTube or anything like that. But I just enjoy, you know, going on different shows and talking about gaming. And then if there's a legal bit, I'm happy to talk about it. You know.
Yeah, and that's really cool. Because I guess when you first started, some of the episodes with Boom was probably Activision Blizzard wasn't even started yet. That was
No, no, yeah, it was well
so that
before
was
that.
way before
Yeah,
that. So,
yeah,
but then I guess as that came up, that
yeah.
probably kind of like hey, I got a perspective on this. So and Boom. Sometimes he'll call me the money man when he's on because I work for U.S. Bank
Mhm.
now, and I do a lot with banking, but not gaming/banking, just
Yeah,
banking in general.
yeah.
So yeah, but I'm sure he probably yeah, as he started using you more and more, he's like, oh, he's a lawyer.
Yeah,
Hey.
yeah, it was a good, yeah, especially when Activision Blizzard, that kind of started rumbling on. I'm sure
Mhm.
it was nice that he thought of me, and wanted to get my opinion on stuff, which is cool. And also sometimes it's not even opinion based; it's more like you can kind of help people understand what's going on.
Right.
So which is just as important sometimes as having an opinion on the whole thing, like being cognizant of okay, what's actually happening. And I was lucky because this kind of the ABK stuff. I have like competition law experience, right?
Mhm.
So relating to the CMA, relating to other competition regulators, like I've done this, so I have experience
Wow.
of it. So it was a rare time where not only because sometimes like I don't know, maybe there's some IP law thing in gaming that's come up that's people talk about, and I can add an opinion on that. Like I can talk about it a bit, but I'm not an IP lawyer, so
Right.
like there are people who would be better than me talking about it. But if it's anything kind of M&A, competition law, anything like that, that's my wheelhouse. That's what I do day
That's
to
what you
day.
do. Nice.
So that it's really cool when that stuff comes up.
Yeah. And I guess transparency. You are not working currently on for anybody that's has anything to do with the ABK deal,
No,
correct?
no, I'm
Okay,
not.
okay,
No, no, no.
right. Which I didn't think you were because you probably wouldn't talk. You wouldn't be able to
No,
talk
I
about
definitely
anything
wouldn't
if you
talk about it
couldn't.
then.
Right, right,
Yeah,
exactly,
but
exactly.
no.
So, but just people that that may what does he think? But it's strictly from that type of law.
Yeah.
This is what you do. So
Yeah,
and
yeah. Yeah, and
so
I mean, I've worked on, I've done a lot of mergers or acquisitions or equity raisings or other
mhm,
commercial contract stuff involving game companies, whether on the other side of that or as them as a client. So I've worked on some really interesting ones that I wish I
right,
could tell people about.
of
Unfortunately, I
course,
can't.
Ab-
Um, but
absolutely understand.
yeah, so I have worked on that stuff. So I've got a unique perspective, unique angle on it with some kind of background stuff as well. And then yeah, so it has been really cool. Yeah, but no, I'm not working on this one. It'd be cool if I was, but I'm not.
Right, right. Well, from a financial standpoint, it'd probably be cool if you
Yeah,
were, because
yeah, yeah,
there's a
yeah, yeah,
lot of money and a lot of lawyers making some money
yeah,
off this
yeah.
one,
Definitely,
for sure,
definitely.
for sure. But yeah, and I knew you weren't. I think you'd mentioned that before on Boom Show that you weren't. But I just want to, so
Yeah,
people
no,
listening
that's
to
fine.
this would know, you know, he's not betraying anybody's trust.
Nope,
He's just
just my opinion.
exactly.
Yeah,
But your opinion is very valued because you've done this type of work before, and that's what I think is really
yeah,
unique. So I guess, well, let's get into it just a little bit.
yeah, sure.
I don't want to rake you over the coals or
No,
anything
no,
like
that's fine.
that. Yeah.
That's fine.
Oh, since we've got him here, let's no, not at all. But if you do, especially because this is going to air probably in about a week, so between now
Yeah.
and a week, some things may already change or be finished up by then. By the time this airs, we don't know,
Mm.
but most likely not. But from the position that we're in now, I guess in the quote unquote ABK deal, and where the CMA has made some new findings, which, from what I understand, is kind of not necessarily the norm. Like this
Yeah.
is unusual for them to,
Mhm.
not to say backtrack, but to relook and revalue and then repost their opinions.
Mhm.
So I guess what do you think about that part of it? And then whatever else, however, where you want to take it from there.
Yeah, sure. It's been a really interesting journey with it actually, and the CMA stuff that's come out in the last week is really unprecedented actually. I was genuinely, it's kind of one of those moments where you open your phone, you have a look at something, you're like genuinely surprised by something that you
Yeah.
read, like a bit of news.
Hmm.
For the CMA to drop an SLC concern, a theory of harm concern, in after they've done a phase 2 review, which is where they were at with this deal, it almost never happens. In fact, I can only think of one time before this that happened, And it's not you never expect the CMA to do that, because usually by the time they've done a phase 1 review, plus there's kind of pre-phase reviews as well, as they're getting documentation before they're even starting their review, they're thinking about what they're going to say, where the kind of information's leading them. By the time you've done that, then you've done a phase 1 review, and then you do a phase 2 review. You've had all of this third-party input. You've had detailed financial modeling, quantitative and qualitative analysis of tons of different things. You're usually pretty set, right? Like the CMA generally at that point, or any other competition regulator, is at a point where their views and their what they think is a potential substantial lessening of competition, and where that falls is usually pretty set. And at that point, it's about, okay, if they believe that, as Microsoft or anybody in Microsoft's position, it's about how do we remove that concern or remediate that concern enough that they will just let the deal go by, with ideally just behavioral remedies. So for the CMA to do what they did last week, which was to actually drop a theory of harm altogether in the console space, it's just pretty stunning, to be honest. I've never experienced anything like that.
Wow.
But as a result, I think, when this whole thing started, and I thought about the CMA in particular, because the CMA, the EU are the ones that I have, experience with, right? I'm not an American lawyer, so the FTC is kind of a different beast altogether. Maybe a bit easier to get by in some respects than others, but as the information was coming down the pipe over the last year, and as these reviews were being done, to me, it was always going to be the CMA that were going to be the most difficult, because they generally just are the most difficult. And I remember being on Boom Show, actually, back when the kind of phase 2 review was about to be published, and saying, look, that phase 2 for the CMA is a really bad place to be, because typically it's a very low percentage of cases that go from, a phase 2 review to being cleared unconditionally or having some kind of easy remedies. Usually they either get blocked, or the CMA or some other regulator orders divestiture, or they just fail for some other reason, usually because a regulator in some other part of the world has asked for it to be blocked or tried to block it. So, kind of and everybody always asks percentages, right? So like my percentages were always kind of pretty low, because that was my experience of the CMA, and that my knowledge of them as an institution and what they were doing was kind of heavily influential on my views, and that pretty much was the case right up until last week, where I thought the percentage chance of this going through was pretty low, and again that was mostly based on the CMA, and like I'm someone who's read all the documents that the CMA have published. So I think a lot of people were saying that the CMA had left the door open to behavioural remedies and stuff like that. And I think they were getting that from some of the language in the provisional findings notice that the CMA published. But equally, the CMA in that same notice said very explicitly, and this is the thing that I kind of took as the main takeaway, which is that they just said, look, we don't think, the circumstances that would warrant behavioural remedies are present in this merger. Like, we just don't think they exist. So my view up until last week was that it was going to be really, really difficult for Microsoft to get this past them without the CMA wanting them to divest Activision, Blizzard, or Call of Duty, or whatever, right?
Right.
So the fact that they've now dropped the console concern and you're just left with this cloud concern is really, really, really significant. And it's kind of pushed my percentage chances of it going through pretty cleanly, like way up, like 80, 90%.
Wow.
And that, like, obviously the CMA have this concern still about cloud gaming, which they've said. it's not surprising because cloud gaming is a nascent market, and the CMA really, really kind of laser focus on markets that are emerging because they don't like the idea that, say, one competitor can get in there quickly, use its resources, and kind of just dominate the market before the market has even started. So
Right.
there is still work to do for Microsoft to be able to convince the CMA that that's not going to be an issue, or at least convince them enough so that the CMA say we don't need any structural remediation, any divestiture. But I think, look, I mean, I think if Microsoft have convinced them to drop this console concern, which they have, then I don't see why they can't convince them on the cloud gaming element as well. And you've seen over the last few weeks, Microsoft reaching out and making all these kind of wild, 10-year deals with these, I mean, basically unknown cloud gaming providers, to try and show, that image of being, look, it is a new market. We are a big player in it, a really significant player. But we're trying to work with others to bring them in, and to not try, we're not trying to squash anybody. We think there's room for everybody to grow in this market, including ourselves and everybody else. So I'd be very surprised if at this point the CMA said, well, the only remedy that we want to, get rid of our concerns about the cloud gaming market would be for you to divest Call of Duty and its studios, or the Activision element of it. Like, I just can't see it anymore.
So it seems like that's almost off the table then.
Yeah. I mean, one thing I've always been quite careful of is, and I see this online a lot, but like people say like the deal will go through or it won't go through, or this will happen or it won't happen. If anybody says that, then it's nonsense because they don't know what would happen. You cannot predict what a regulator is going to do. I would have never predicted the CMA did what they did last week, for example. And even lawyers, myself or Hogue, who's great, really knowledgeable, anybody else, we don't know what's going to happen. So we only ever say, well, I think it could go this way, and here's my rough percentage chance. And I've always tried to never give any value judgments about this in terms of, I'm not, like I've always said, do I personally want the merger to happen? Yes, because I'm a Game Pass subscriber. I want more games on Game Pass.
Heck yeah.
Selfishly, that's what I want. But I think some people, sometimes attribute like a tribalism to this, like they want it to happen because it will annoy another batch of gamers or whatever. Like, and I don't ever, like, I've never tried to approach that in that way. I've always tried to approach it in a sort of, here's the kind of technical framework we're operating in. Here's what I think might happen next, but I can't tell you. So in terms of what's next, I think it's quite likely that Microsoft will be able to get this through across everyone, with some remedies in place, but certainly nothing that they won't be willing to give. But yeah, we'll see. Like the interesting one now actually is no longer for me the CMA or the EU. It's probably the FTC, because the FTC, like, are they gonna stick with this and go to August with the administrative law judge process? Are they going to do that? Are they going to drop it if everybody else has agreed with Microsoft? That they're willing to pass it with certain concessions. Who knows? But it's still going to be interesting even now.
Yeah, I'm with you. Now, I'm going to be upfront and say I'm one of the people that say it's going through 100%. I don't have, from my point though, is that the reason I say that is because I'm trying to will it into existence.
No, that's fine. Yeah, that's different. Like that's the thing. I think, like, I'm sure you've never said, oh, well, it's going to go through 100%, and I know it will because I just know, right? Like, I've got the knowledge. Like, you're trying to be like, okay, it's going to go through. Like, it's almost like a self-reassurance because you want it to go through. Like, so and that's absolutely fine. I think so. Like, your kind of example is not the issue I have. The issue I have is, and you get this on Twitter a lot, is this kind of like, I mean, there's been a lot of fake lawyers or a lot of
Right.
wannabe. I never knew so many people were lawyers on Twitter before this whole thing started, right?
That's
So, or
awesome.
had this experience. So, and
Right.
it's those people who are like, well, I've gone through the notice myself, and I can tell you X, Y. I won't say names, but people will know probably who I'm talking about. But like, I've gone through the notice, and here are loads of reasons why the CMA will definitely let this through. And then, of course, the CMA do something in that's positive towards that, and they go, look, I told you so.
Right.
And it's like, you don't know anything, you didn't know
Yeah.
anything, you got lucky. It was a 50-50, right? So you
Yes,
flipped a coin.
exactly.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so those are the people I don't that are frustrating, I
Right.
think, from
That's
my
a fair way of
perspective.
saying it. Yeah. Because, and even if one of the people we're talking about is the same person I'm thinking of, they're more familiar with US law,
Yeah,
where you're familiar, with the CMA and what they go through
yeah.
and some of the things that this other person has said. I'm being so vague, but most people probably know who we're talking about. Which I have a lot of respect for him, and I hope what he says happens, that it just goes through, and maybe it gets to that point.
Yeah,
But talking about the concessions, or what did you call remedies?
yeah,
Well,
yeah,
that would be, if they've came out and said they're willing to do 10 years, 10 years, 10 years, which is pretty, from what I understand, that's actually a pretty big, like a chunk of time
yeah,
to be willing to continue doing something, when normally, 2 or 3 years or 5 years is like, you know, even 5 years is usually pretty, like, oh, that's a long
yeah,
time,
yeah,
for the status quo, because, will there be a PlayStation 6? Most likely, but we don't know for
yeah,
sure,
yeah.
you know. But 10 years, hopefully the world's going to be here in 10 years.
Fingers
so,
crossed. Yeah, yeah,
so- exactly. But that's the point. We just
Mm,
don't know what the future holds. And
yeah,
so to time Microsoft to Call of Duty, most likely it's still going to be a hugely successful game, because they're not going to do anything to damage it. They're going to do nothing but try and make it better.
yeah.
That that it's still going to be going as strong as it is. But for some reason, if the next big thing came out and it waned off, to where they may, like, oh, I wish we didn't have to make this, or it cost us more to make it on all these different platforms we promised over
Mm,
the next 10 years. I mean, they're taking that risk too.
yeah, yeah,
So
100%.
so
Yeah, I
if
mean,
go ahead.
no, no, go ahead. No, yeah, I think that's right. I mean, what they're offering um, is pretty unprecedented. Even like going back to the console space, offering licensing agreements for 10 years for Call of Duty
Hmm.
on Nintendo platforms, for example, or
Yeah.
on Steam. Not that I know Valve didn't take them up on it in the end, but stuff like that is really it's not common at all. But it all makes sense, because for Microsoft, it's never really. I genuinely don't think it's ever really been about exclusive content. I think the Bethesda acquisition probably was, because
Hmm.
they wanted a big bolster of their first party studios, and Bethesda have a really rich lineup of franchises of
Hmm.
studios who can make really great games that can feed Game Pass. But and so Microsoft, I'm consciously took the choice to be like, okay, we're going to make that content exclusive now. Not legacy, not, but anything new, we will. This one has never been, to me, it's never been about that. Part of it is to feed Game Pass, right?
Right.
Which is still important to them, really important. But it's never been to feed Game Pass and take it away from other platforms, because it's commercially just not viable for them to do
Right.
that at all, for Call of Duty anyway. Now, other franchises, I don't know, right? So,
Hmm.
other things that Activision Studios or Blizzard may make, we'll see what Microsoft do with that. But Call of Duty specifically, I don't think there's ever been any risk, which is something the CMA realized last week, where they were like, actually, we don't need any remedy here in the console space, because everything that Microsoft have shown us, including new financial evidence, suggests that they would be completely mental to take it from other platforms. Right now,
Right.
obviously, they will do things to to kind of embolden people to come to Xbox to play it, or
Right.
to Xbox platforms, whether that's Game Pass, that'll be one. Another big one's obviously marketing,
Hmm.
when the deal with Sony actually runs out. But it, it's clearly not to take it away from PlayStation or anybody else. So and the second big thing obviously is being to kind of lead the charge in their mobile pursuit, right, with King. So
Right.
yeah, so I think it's interesting, and I think what they've been doing over the last, let's say, 3, 4, 5 months is to try and show as best as possible that we're really serious about not trying to take this content away from people. We're not trying to take Call of Duty. We're trying to give it to more people, right, and to get
Hmm.
more people involved in the franchise, because ultimately that just benefits Microsoft if they own Activision, because more people means more revenue.
Right.
So yeah, I think their strategy it's been good, what they've been trying to do, and obviously they're quite serious about it. But obviously it's taking time to try and convince regulators, which is a big job in itself, right?
Right. Yeah, and I guess Microsoft pretty much knew that from the get go because they set their own kind of deadline as July of this
Yeah.
year, so that's almost like a year and a half from when they first started. So they knew it was wasn't going to be cakewalk.
No, no,
We were
definitely
done.
not.
Not like Bungie, which took like a month, which was crazy how fast that went
Yeah,
through.
it's pretty quick, that one. Yeah.
But then again, they didn't contest it. They didn't go they didn't go after Sony. And I guess my perspective, which is I'm just a nobody. I'm a gamer, but what I can see, and you can correct me, obviously, because I would love for you to, um, that Sony, as the whole reason they try to, I guess, kick their heels up, try and stop the deal,
Yeah.
is twofold. One, it wasn't really about the exclusive as far as they were going to lose their exclusive. It's that their exclusivity did give them a lot of power in the marketplace because there's a lot of people out there, casual type gamers or Pacific gamers. In other words, somebody who's just going to be, I get a PlayStation because of Call of Duty to play with my
Yeah.
buddies, and I very very rarely play anything else, and that's what they play. So, and if you tell them that Call of Duty is on another platform, they're like, "What? And that's
Hmm.
what? What's another? You can no, I just PlayStation. That's where you play, right?"
Yeah.
And that's what they want you to think. They have all the bonuses, all the extra content, or the content comes there first, and that's their whole thing. A lot of people would think that COD was a PlayStation made game,
Mm.
so
Yeah.
that was kind of the way they tried to treat it. But I think their biggest fear, the reason they kicked up the storm the most, is because they're afraid of Game Pass and what it's going to do to their overall revenue. Because Game Pass, as it grows, it's $70 that they're getting every time Sony sells one of those games. And even though Microsoft says, "Oh, you can put it on your streaming platform too," they're like, well, "We don't want it there."
Yeah.
Hello, we want to get $70 per game, and you're messing with our you're messing with our mojo,
Yeah.
you know. And that's to me that's the biggest thing. And then it's going to be. I love that it's going to be a quote unquote a clean playing field for everybody, and that it's going to be available everywhere. So if you
Mm.
still want your PlayStation, you want to play it on PlayStation, great. If you're like budget gamer and you want to play it on your TV, your computer, stream it, whatever, for 14.99 a month, then you're able to play Call of Duty with all your friends.
Yeah.
I think that's great. The choice should be the consumers, and that Microsoft has given us more choices. I think it's a good thing.
Mm.
And Sony, I think, is absolutely. I mean, they're the market leader by far. When this is all said and done, they're still going to be the market leader. And it's not going to
Yeah.
change overnight.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, the gap may close a little, and over time, Microsoft, I'm sure, is wanting the gap to close a lot. If not
Yeah.
someday, them be number one or at least
Yeah.
number two,
Sure.
because they're not number two right now.
Mm.
So that's to me that's their biggest stink. And when Jim Ryan was kind of caught off camera, which thanks to Lulu for letting us know what was actually said. You know, we don't want your deal. We don't want you to be able to buy them. It's
Yeah.
like, wow. So like it's really telling right there in that statement. Um, but it's not
Yeah.
like poor Sony. I think they can actually get things done if they, you know, get off their ass and get to work again. Right?
Yeah, I mean it's an interesting one, isn't it? I think like taking some of those things. I think for sure the reasons, Sony wouldn't like this for a couple of reasons. One, because Call of Duty is a significant source of revenue on their platform.
Right.
For third-party games, anyway, and the associated revenue that brings in terms of getting people onto your platform, paying for PlayStation Plus for Call of Duty, to play that online,
Right.
and then spending incidental money on Call of Duty or other games on your platform, that's really lucrative. So Sony wouldn't, the first thing that Sony didn't want to lose in this, really, or the reason they would have never wanted it to go through, is because they have an advantage over Microsoft in terms of, if you look at Call of Duty console sales, console revenue, by far the biggest portion of that is on PlayStation. And therefore it's mutually beneficial for Sony and Activision to enter into marketing arrangements, which they have been doing, to keep that going, to kind of have this virtuous cycle reinforcing that PlayStation is a place to play Call of Duty, right? And as you say, it's not just Call of Duty with this stuff, but if you look at any marketing deal that Xbox or PlayStation have, they don't, whenever they show it to people, they never show the other platforms, right? It's always branded with their platform because they want that association that this is the platform, this is where you want to buy this, you should go and buy it here. That's what they pay the marketing for. So Sony never wanted that to go away, which it always is going to if Microsoft own Activision Blizzard, because there's no chance that they will ever enter into a marketing deal with Sony to advertise a game that they own, right? So just in the same way, you could twist that on its head, right? It would be exactly the same. So I think for sure that's a reason that they didn't want this to go through. And I mean, in terms of Jim's language to Activision Blizzard, I think that was in the EU remedy discussion time in Brussels. But I mean, when it came out, I know there was some controversy about it, but I don't really understand why. Because Sony before this in filings had clearly indicated that they didn't want the deal to go through.
Right.
They'd been publicly pretty upfront about that. It's just obviously Jim was even more blunt about that, saying, look, I'm not interested in a deal you have to offer because I don't want that. I don't want you to, I want the deal to be blocked. First of all, that's not different to what Sony were publicly saying, or that you couldn't infer from their actions. And really, and I've always said this because this is a point that's kind of, I've seen this come up elsewhere in terms of Sony's conduct throughout all of this, which is that I don't know sometimes what people expected Sony to do or wanted Sony to do, because if you're talking about expectation, if you expect that Sony, as really, probably Activision's biggest partner, I suppose, in terms of marketing and all that sort of stuff, would just turn around and go, yeah, we've got no problems with this, go ahead, Microsoft, then people who think that are just totally deluded, because Sony are under, if you think about their boards of directors and Jim Ryan, etc., they've got to act in the best interests of Sony, of the the company's members as a whole. The way you do that is to, try and, in this case, maintain the status quo, because you don't want people defecting from PlayStation to go and play it on Xbox, because you lose a customer. You use that, as you said, you lose that $70 game sale for one. You lose that PS Plus subscription potentially. So you don't want them to do that. So Sony's position to me has never been that controversial. It's been a bit tenuous in some of the things that they've tried to assert. That's totally true. But they will they were always going to throw anything they could at this to try and torpedo it, and you know, they've done what they can, really. Like, there's no guarantees in any of this. So but yeah, I mean, and then I guess in terms of what it means for Sony going forward, like, as you say, I don't think their market position is really going to change. I think people will still continue to associate PlayStation with Call of Duty for some time, and obviously for a lot of gamers, they're kind of embedded in that ecosystem now. So you will get some, some movement of gamers from that platform to Xbox as a result of this in the future, not now.
Right.
Because bearing in mind also that presumably under the terms of Sony's current market agreement, a marketing agreement with Activision, which I think runs out
2024
in 24.
Yes.
They won't be able to put it on Game Pass anyway,
right,
at the moment. So it will continue to be marketed on PlayStation for some time. Yeah. So that's not going to happen overnight. Some people will move. I don't think it will be loads. I mean, you can see from the assessments that Microsoft have done, that they've submitted to the CMA, and now the CMA's own assessments, that they don't think they think the percentage of gamers that will turn platform purely because of the merger, it's quite low, very low, in the UK at least. And you would think it would probably be the same across different jurisdictions as well.
Yeah, you would think so, for sure.
Particularly the EU. So I think Sony are fine. Yeah, and they will be fine. I don't know what they'll do in response. Whether they'll, I don't see Sony trying to make like a Call of Duty. I don't really think that's feasible anyway, because you're talking about a 3,000 to 4,000 development, 3,000 to 4,000 developers on effectively an annualized cycle to make a Call of Duty game, investing billions of dollars. I don't think that's feasible for Sony to do. I don't think it's really feasible for many companies to do, apart from Activision Blizzard, who have kind of made their entire business model around this. So I don't like the idea when people are like, oh yeah, Sony could just make a competitor, when they just ignore the realities of what that franchise is. 20 years of IP, goodwill, and recognition. Like, it's not that easy,
right?
But they certainly could make games that are, help to fill the void of people who might go across to another platform. Get revenue in another way, basically. But I don't think there are any trouble from this at all. It's just going to be interesting to see how they react more than anything, because that's the unpredictable element. Where are they going to go? But I guess we'll see in 2025 onwards. We'll probably start to see some of the effects of this deal vis-a-vis Call of Duty, and that will be quite interesting.
Oh, I agree with you 100%. That's it's definitely going to be changes coming, but it's not going to be overnight. It's not going to be and even 2025, if that's the is it going to be on Game Pass? Most likely,
yeah.
But all right, say the deal gets done tomorrow. Obviously, this Call of Duty and next year's Call of Duty won't be on Game Pass.
No,
but are there older ones? How far back can they?
I would think probably some of the older ones would come to Game Pass. But it depends on the term of these contracts, right? The older marketing deals that they've had. So
because they may have had a clause saying never on Game Pass.
Yeah, it may have been you can't, for the term of the contract, which might still be enforced, that you can't offer it on a competing subscription platform, or can't put it on a competing subscription platform unless we agree, or unless you offer it to us first on fair and reasonable market terms, or something like that. So it's going to be interesting when it presuming it closes this year.
Right.
What goes on to Game Pass and what doesn't, and how quickly that stuff goes on to Game Pass, particularly in the Call of Duty space.
I would assume they probably, there's probably a handful of titles, mixed ones, that may, day and date of the sit-down meeting, acquisition type meeting, saying, hey, here, and this is what you can find in Game Pass today.
Mm.
from them, you know, and then
Yeah.
there'll probably be some others that'll take some work, take some time, take a little
Yeah, for sure.
finessing to make it happen.
Yeah.
So that's, you know, that's always going to be interesting as things go forward. Wow, Luke, man, thank you so much for being on today and
No, no
for
problem.
for taking the time to talk about this. I know we got a little weedy there with the
No, it's
with,
fun. It's fun.
yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Well, I
Yeah.
appreciate your expertise and then, you know, what you bring to the table. And like I said, you explain things. I'm from Kentucky, so sometimes we get like we're a little stupid, but you know, I do banking. I don't do lawyering. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah, no.
You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
so this kind of stuff to me is like, you know, I should seem like I should work or this should happen, but it's not that simple. You
Yeah.
know,
It
there are
rarely
laws.
is, sadly.
Yeah.
Rarely is. Yeah.
That's so awesome. So let's as we start to wrap things up,
Yeah.
is there anything else you wanted to say about the merger going through, or just
No, just I think the overriding message I would give people is I think if you're listening to people on this, then always be minded that that's someone's opinion and they don't know that for fact. That even goes for lawyers,
right?
right? Unless they're a lawyer actually involved in this, which if they are, then they're doing very bad things telling you about it. But unless they are, like, it's, you know, it's someone's opinion. If they are a lawyer and they're giving you an objective assessment of a situation in terms of what could be the next steps, what might be, listen to them,
Hmm.
because they're not, you know, I mean, I'm speaking for myself only here, but, you know, never trying to inject like a fanboy element into this. I've always tried to
Right.
be quite, you know, try and give people knowledge of what's going on, and then, you know, whether you want it to happen or not is entirely up to you, right? So
Right.
I think that's the only last thing I'd say about it. Like, I'm not, people aren't out, you know, myself, Hogue, others, I don't think we're out there to try and, you know, tell you what we think is the best thing to happen, you know, if we think it should go through or not. It's purely to inform. So yeah, just bear that in mind.
Yeah, and I think it's pretty awesome that you're willing to do that because it makes it um a little more tolerable and a little more, I guess,
Yeah,
digestible.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know, for for people that are just not in the know, that just, you know, obviously a lot of people really want it to get done, and there's
yeah,
just as
myself
many people
included.
that don't want it to go anywhere. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
so that's it is what it is. Something's gonna happen one way or the other.
yeah. Either way,
Something's gonna get done.
it's going to be over. By the end of the year, I think it will be. You know, one way or another, it'll be done,
Yeah,
and then we can all move on
yeah,
with our
yeah.
lives and then start enjoying games again. Maybe.
And
Um,
if things go the way we want it to, the board of directors for Microsoft will be like, okay, Phil, who's next? I'm just kidding.
Yeah, yeah, no, yeah. I think they'll be on the down low for quite some time after this.
You think?
Microsoft. Yeah, I mean, at least in terms of publishers, I don't think
Right,
they're going to go near a publisher.
right.
Single developers, they'll totally keep going for those.
Yeah,
Because they make there's so many I mean, there's thousands of development studios in the world. It makes no difference if you get another 10. You know what I mean?
yeah.
So those I could absolutely see. Publishers, not for quite some time.
Well, and they said they have like cash on hand after this deal, after
Yeah,
that they're going to have like 90 billion still cash on hand available to them for acquisitions. That's
yeah,
insane. You
yeah.
know
That's
that they could.
the Microsoft juggernaut, I suppose, isn't
It
it? Like,
is.
they're
It
one of the
is.
few companies that can make a deal this size in cash only. I mean, normally you would have to finance at least, you know, you'd have to leverage at least part of it,
Right.
or you would have to do like an equity swap,
Mm-hmm.
or you know, partly, or something like that. Most other companies would need to do that. It's just because Microsoft had like what 130 billion cash on hand at the time that they could be like, yeah, we'll just do it pure cash, which is
That's so
cool.
crazy. Yeah, it's cool.
So,
Nice to do, right?
nice to do. Yeah, if you can do it, why not? Yeah, why not?
Yeah. Phil, can you play my parking when I come visit you?
Yeah, that would be nice.
You got any money? Goodness. Well, all right. Okay. So as we wrap it up here, let's
Yeah,
get to What is your most anticipated game that you're looking forward to that's not out yet? And it can be more than one because most people give me more than one.
Yeah, yeah. Is this for this year or
What
like just going
of
forward?
all time, yeah, going
Oh my
forward.
God. Yeah, that's
Something that's
even
been
more
announced.
difficult.
How's that? Okay.
Okay, that's been announced. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's really difficult. Um, I'll probably keep it to this mostly this year because I'm not
Okay.
going to be able to pick one, but I'll give you a few.
That sounds great.
Yeah, so this year, Diablo 4, I've been playing the beta this
Amazing, isn't
weekend.
it?
It's just unbelievably good. I had to kind of pull myself away from it because I was kind of like, well, twofold. One, I didn't want to invest so much time on a character that I can't carry over.
Right.
And you become attached to these characters. So like I didn't want to become like really attached to mine and then I got to build him again. So I was like, I'm going to come away from that. And two, because I wanted to play Resident Evil 4,
Yeah.
which I mean, it tells you how good Diablo 4 is that I picked up Resident Evil 4 on Friday and I only played it very late last night for the first time because I was just playing
Wow.
Diablo 4.
Sure, sure. Keeping at it,
So,
yeah.
yeah, so Diablo 4 is one. Hugely excited about that. Tears of the Kingdom, I'm
Yeah.
really excited for. I love Breath of the Wild. I'm a big Zelda fan in general.
Me too.
That's just kind of just huge game, I think. Potentially incredible. So there's that one. I'm really looking forward to Alan Wake 2. I'm a huge Remedy fan,
Nice.
and I love the original. And I'm also a really big fan of survival horror games. So the fact that they've confirmed this one is a survival horror, like for the first time,
Yeah.
that's hugely exciting for me. Spider-Man 2, loved the first game. Such a
Mhm.
big fan of that. What Insomniac have done.
Oh, yeah.
So big one for me. I'm actually really, really, really looking forward to Forza Motorsport, which I know will be like some people like, well, of course, but for me, like I'm not a big sim racer fan.
Right.
But I've been playing a lot of Gran Turismo 7 in the last couple of months, and I just fell in love with it, and that's kind
Yeah.
of opened me up to more sim races. So Forza, I'm really looking forward to. There's so many others like Hades 2.
Oh,
Really looking
yeah.
forward to that. Silk Song, obviously,
Mhm.
big indie game fan as well. I think going forward, man, I guess like what am I really excited for? Like I'm really, really, really looking forward, and I hope it's good. To the Knights of the Old Republic remake.
Yeah.
That was, I played that on the original Xbox, and that's one of my favorite games of all time. So I really hope that's done justice. So I'm looking forward to it, but I'm kind of cautious, in the same way,
Yeah.
because you're always cautious about games being remade when they're like cherished, because you're like, oh, I hope they don't mess this up, right? Like, that's a
Right.
big one. There's loads. The next Mass Effect, whatever that's going to be called.
Right.
Can't wait. Wolverine, really looking forward to it. Hellblade 2, can't wait for that.
Yeah, if that demo come out. Ooh, wow.
It looks amazing. And Ninja Theory is just great as well. Fable, God, I hope we see that soon. Love that
Yes.
franchise. I think Playground could do an amazing job with it, but I really want to see it.
Yeah.
So lots and lots. So I'm sorry that there's like,
No,
15
no.
games in there, but
But
it's
I'm right there
really
with you.
difficult.
Every
Yeah.
single one of those, I agree with you 100%, man. I'm
Yeah.
chomping at the
Yeah.
bit for all those. It is a hard choice.
It's
I
really
get it.
hard. Yeah.
So trust me, I get it. But I ask it because it's just kind of a fun question to, to see where
Yeah.
people are at. For a while, people would say like Hogwarts was,
Yeah,
before it came
yeah.
out. I got a lot of those, and at the time I was kind of surprised. Now that it's out and I'm addicted to playing it, was playing it before we got on the interview.
Nice.
I can see why. So
Yeah, exactly. And they come out, and then it's like if you would have asked me a month ago, Resident Evil 4 would have been like one of the first things I would have said. And now that's out, and I'm playing it, and it's just as incredible as I hoped it would be, and I love it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's kind of this cycle where you're kind of so excited for a game, and then you play the game, and then you're already thinking about, okay, I'm really going to enjoy this, but then what's coming out next? You know, what's the next big thing that's coming out? And yeah, that's kind of one of the joys of being a gamer, I guess.
Exactly. And a lot of those titles you mentioned are coming to Game Pass, so that'll be nice too.
Yeah, a lot of them are. Yeah, I didn't say Redfall, by the way, which I'm really looking forward to. And I didn't say Starfield because Starfield's a really interesting one.
Everybody says Starfield, right?
Everybody says it, and like I won't say it. The only reason I don't say it is because I'm a huge Elder Scrolls fan. I love Elder Scrolls, pretty much every game in that franchise. But I'm not a big fan of the Fallout Bethesda games at all. And I don't know where Starfield will sort of land. You know, like it's a traditional Zelda game, but it's kind of gun heavy. So like, and I don't like that in Fallout. Like, I don't think that's particularly good. So Fallout could either be like an amazing game for me or just not. So I never put Starfield on my most anticipated, but I totally understand why people do, because if you're a Bethesda fan and if you love both Fallout and Elder Scrolls, like you'll just be super excited for that game, which is totally fine. So I can't wait to play it, but I just hope I fall on the Elder Scrolls love side rather than the Fallout I don't love side. So
right. Well, I'm right there with you. Fingers crossed on that too, because I hope your lips to God's ears that it turns out as good as we hope.
I know, yeah. If it does, I mean, if it comes out, you know, in the way that I think people are hoping for it to, in terms of how it will play and, or you know, the exploration, then it could be a really special game.
Yes, I agree with that 100%. Luke Steele, thank you so much for being on here today.
No
it has actually been a privilege for me to have you on.
Oh, thank you.
So let's tell people how they can get a hold of you, where they can find you, and everything's also going to be in the show notes below. But this way, sometimes it sinks in a little bit when they hear from you.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, it's my pleasure. Thank you very much for having me. And yeah, I mean, you can see on screen if you're watching it, and if not, I'll tell you. Follow me on Twitter at LukeSteele90. So you can find me there. On YouTube, I am a co-host of the Indie Game podcast with the Indie Gamer, which you'll find on the Indie Gamer's YouTube channel. So we do kind of a show once a month or so. And we'll do some ad hoc videos as well, reviews occasionally, etc., or first impressions. So find me there, and then kind of, I don't know, just look at my Twitter, and I'll probably pop up on, you know, various podcasts here and there, and you can go and follow me and see what I'm up to if you're that way inclined. But yeah, other than that, again, thank you very much for having me. Very, very much appreciated.
Well, thank you so much for joining us here. And I have a feeling Boom's probably going to be reaching out to you several times over the next couple of weeks. I know Boom pretty well now, and he's like, got to get Luke on. So
yeah. Well, awesome. If he needs me, just throw up the little symbol, and then I'll appear.
Sounds great, Luke. Again, thank you so much for being here. Everybody, thank you all for joining us on Outbreak Gamers. Please subscribe to this channel. We're on our way to 1,000 subscribers. We're getting there, but you know, every little bit helps, and we appreciate if you enjoy this content. More great interviews like this one from Leap, and a whole bunch more. We have even Mr. Boomstick has been interviewed on here. Dealer Gaming, Randall Thor 19, Colt Eastwood, Hargi Chani, so many more that we've had, and blessed to have each and every one of them, and more coming. Got a lot more in the works, so please stick around for that. And thanks for everybody for joining us here at Outbreak Gamers.
Game